Hello, welcome to Hari Sadhana 108. Previously, we learned how Mata fulfilled her promise to Sage Khyati and Sage Arundhati by taking away power of curse. Now, moving ahead to last part of this chapter. Soma continues narrating to Anusuya and her mother from Ayodhya. The mother, who was lying on Mata's bed, began to stir. Her eyes flickered open and she uttered a sound. Mata went to her. After a few minutes, she was able to focus her eyes on Mata and asked in a weak voice, "Where am I?" "You are here at the hermitage," Mata replied. "There was an accident with the chariot and you were thrown to the ground." "My daughter?" She tried to rise from the bed. "She is right here, not yet recovered, but she will be fine." Shri Ram took his leave so that Mata could devote herself to the wounded pair. That night, Guruji came to check on the condition of mother and daughter. Mata began to apologize for her intervention, but Guruji prevented her. "What you did was right," he humbly replied. "It is up to our Maharaja to set the punishment. I am ever grateful for your care of the mother and daughter. Her father is a close disciple and is distraught at what has happened. Without your help, I don't know what would have become of this child. Give them a few more days and they will be ready to go home. And let marriage planning proceed." "Can I move them to the hermitage?" Guruji asked. Mata nodded. I think she realized that the wound she had healed in the young girl's body was about to manifest in her own body. Later that day, Mata was overcome with pain in her womb area and began to bleed. In the evening, Shri Ram came to check on her. When I saw him approach the cottage, I stepped outside and said to him, "Prabhu, please excuse me for saying this, but Mata has asked that you not see her in her present condition." Shri Ram replied, "Soma, this is one time I must override her wishes. I will not permit her to endure this alone. I must be by her side." For a moment I wondered what to do. I had never disobeyed Mata before, but when I looked up at Shri Ram and felt the love pouring out of him, I realized he would bring comfort and healing to her. I stepped aside and let him enter, saying that I would leave food and water by the door in case she would want it. Shri Ram did not emerge from the cottage until the next morning. All night I had rested outside by the cottage in the event that they would need me. As soon as I heard the door open, I asked him if I could bring food or drink to Mata and to him. "She is sleeping, but I would welcome some food, Soma," he replied with a slight smile. "How is she?" I asked. "The effects have passed through her body. She will now begin to recover." As I served the food to Shri Ram, I asked, "Prabhu, she took on herself this pain to save the life of that young woman. And this is not the first time she has done this. How much can she endure? For Sita, every life is precious. How many times she would have given up her body to save another. How many times I have had to intervene to keep her here. One day I will not be able to do so." A look of pain crossed my face as he continued, "Soma, even I do not know the extent of what she sacrificed in Lanka. That is her wish, to serve quietly out of public view. The world will never know what she has given to preserve life on this earth." He was quiet for a few minutes and then added, "When she stood in front of the two accused men with her arms outstretched, she set a new precedent of compassion, extending even to those who have committed the most vile of offenses. At that moment, I saw her drawing in many of the negative thought forms from all parts of the earth. They entered her body to be consumed and destroyed. I could not stop her. That is my pain, that I cannot take from her the burden of the world that she has assumed. It took several days before Mata could rise from her bed and walk without pain. Shri Ram stayed throughout this time. But when she was able to function normally, he left to return to Ayodhya. Before he departed, I heard her say to him, I am no longer able to bear children. He replied, all life on earth are our children. What more do we need? Some days later, as I was serving her first full meal, I repeated what Sri Ram had said about her sacrifices. She smiled and replied, whatever I have done is only a fraction of what he has undertaken. I am but a reflection of his love for this world, and indeed all worlds that hold life. This is how they spoke of one another. They saw in each other the perfection that was there. Their love was as pure and sacred. There really are no words to describe it. We all should aspire to manifest even a small portion of the love they brought to earth. A few weeks after this incident, I had gone to the forest to collect some wood for the kitchen fire. Upon returning, I found Mata deep in conversation with two women I did not recognize. I had not been gone long and wondered how they could have appeared so suddenly. They were seated in the garden, surrounded by flowers. I couldn't help but stop to look at the beautiful sight. Both women seemed older than Mata in their mature years, and yet a youthful beauty graced their faces. They were dressed as ascetics, yet something about them indicated otherwise. I went behind the hut to begin the fire for cooking. When it came time for the noon meal and Mata still did not appear, I went around to where they were seated and found them still deeply engaged in conversation. For a few minutes I debated whether to offer them a meal or not, but I heard Mata's voice inside asking me to please prepare a proper meal for them. I gathered the various vegetables we had picked from the garden in the early morning and mixed them with some herbs we had retrieved from the forest the day before. The scent of the cooking must have drawn them, because as soon as the food was ready, they appeared with broad smiles on their faces. I saw from Mata's face that she wanted to serve them, and so began to busy myself in another part of the kitchen area. Over the years, I had learned to read Mata's every expression. A glance of her eye, a nod of her head was enough to indicate to me her desire. After they had finished, they retreated again to the garden area. They sat there until dark, and then I saw Mata walk into the forest with them, and the two women disappeared. I could not help but inquire about this mysterious woman who had suddenly appeared at our hut and then disappeared again into the forest. They were the sages Arundhati and Kyatima, she replied in a surprised tone. Didn't you recognize them? I wondered why you didn't greet them by name. They had come to remind me of a vow I took long ago and to express their pleasure that I had fulfilled that vow. Then I remembered I had met them before we retreated to the forest. They were the ones who helped Mata understand her dreams were a vision of the past. I wondered if their visit had anything to do with what had happened a few weeks earlier to that young woman and her mother. As soon as Mata saw this thought enter my mind, she nodded and said, I was only fulfilling the desire of many sages, especially the women sages. They all felt it was the time to withdraw the power of the curse. Too often has it been abused. That day when I acted as I did, I had not realized I was fulfilling their desire. Sage Arundhati, who lost so many sons to a curse. Kyatima, who saw her beloved Narayan to be cursed. Sage Ahilya, who herself was cursed. And how many others? This had to come about for them.